You know, I just got done deleting about 200 really angry, vile comments from one of my videos on this YouTube channel. It's a video, it's a bear hunting video, and where bait is used to attract a bear. And that's about half the comments I got. I'm not sure if someone, linked this video to an anti-hunting site or whatever. But, I just get a lot of negative comments on some of these videos. Some of the videos are, especially when it comes to bear hunting and baiting bears. And what's really disturbing is that there are a lot of people who call themselves hunters that are, really, really opposed to baiting bears. And I realize they're just ignorant, but I don't understand why people get so angry. And, I get these comments. People say, I want to shoot an arrow through your head, and I'm going to come and kill your children, and these types of things. I get that, and I get the other just really, really vile negative comments, hate speech, lots of that type of thing, and I just delete them, especially the ones that have really bad language and so forth. I typically don't delete the comments that aren't, real vile. People just say, I don't understand, bear baiting seems unfair, it's too easy, and things like that. It's not hateful, but it's just ignorant. And so I thought it would be really good to do a quick video on why do we bait bears, just to help educate people there's a lot of misinformation and uneducated people out there about bear baiting. So I thought I would just kind of go through and talk about the talking points of why we bait bears and the value of it. And for the people who are just haters and I just get a lot of comments by people, I think, that they feel like it gives them power to attack you for what you're doing. And realistically, their mind is like cement. It's all mixed up and permanently set. And this video is not for you. If you just, want to spew hate at me and at the people in my bear hunting videos, then, don't watch them, for crying out loud. If you hate bear hunting and you hate hunters, why are you watching a hunting video? So there's that. But the thing that disturbs me is how many hunters who are, deer hunters, waterfowl hunters, turkey, all that type of thing, and they seem to be opposed to bear baiting. I suppose it's because baiting for most of those animals is illegal in most places, so they have a bias against baiting. But bear baiting is really an essential part of wildlife management in areas where we have bears, and in most cases, the DNRs, the state game departments, couldn't meet their harvest goals without baiting, and that's why we have baiting in 28 states and in all but 2 of the Canadian provinces. And it's a really important part of managing the predator aspect of our stewardship. We are stewards of the land, which doesn't just mean that our responsibility is to keep the populations in control of deer and other things, but also predator control is an important part of population control. So the great thing about bears is they're great sport, they're lots of fun, it's just thrilling and exciting to hunt them, it's difficult, and they're great to eat. So let's talk through this a little bit. I mentioned that there are 28 states and all but 2 of the Canadian provinces that have bear baiting. The states that don't have bear baiting are the states in the western United States where it's mountainous country, where the bears come out in the spring and fall and they're feeding on berries, or right after the snow melt they're feeding on fresh green shoots and so forth. And these areas are conducive to spot and stalk hunting, and spot and stalk hunting is also very difficult. I've done it. I've been on a bear hunt in British Columbia where I went on a spot and stalk hunt with a bow, and if you think that getting within 35 to 40 yards effective bow range of a bear in the open in the mountains is easy, you really ought to try it. We hunted really hard for 6 days. I finally shot the 42nd bear that I saw on that hunt. It's difficult, but it actually works. Where if you went to Minnesota or Michigan, Maine, the eastern seaboard of the United States, Wisconsin, if you had to spot and stalk bears, you wouldn't kill a bear. And that's why the DNR has recognized the importance of using bait to attract bears, to get them close enough where we can get a shot at them. and work on keeping their populations in control. And some of the comments that I get on the YouTube channel are people that say that, you shouldn't bait bears, it's not sporting, you should just walk around in the woods until you can shoot one. Well, you could walk around the woods your whole life and probably never shoot a bear. That's just the reality. So that's entirely based on ignorance. So another myth is that bear baiting is somehow easy. It's throw out a pile of donuts, a bear walks up and you shoot it. What's the sport in that? Well, in the states where we have baiting for bears, the success rate is about 30%. And most of these states have about 6-week seasons. So if that's the case, that it's so easy, then why are only 30% of the hunters who are out there working hard getting their bears? And also, why did I do a bear hunting DVD called How to Bait Big Bears and a book called The Bear Baiter's Manual, each of which have sold over 2,000 copies? If bear baiting is that easy, then why is there so much interest in Bear Hunting Magazine and other publications that provide information on locations and strategies, and there's tons of information in these two things about where to put your baits and baiting strategy and the types of baits that are best and how to keep the nocturnal bears from only visiting your baits in the dark and things like that. There's huge difficulties in baiting bears. It's not just easy. When you see a video, it's maybe a 3 or 5 minute video, all you see is the bear walking up to the bait, the guy shoots it, and of course it looks easy because you didn't see the hours and hours of trial and error in the hauling the bait into the woods and the hours, hundreds of hours sometimes, of sitting on stand until that bear walks up. So myth number one is that it's easy, and it's not easy. It's difficult. And that's why only 30% of the hunters typically get bears when they draw tags. Now, the DNR, to meet their objectives for management, the game departments in these states recognize the importance of shooting mature males whenever possible to value the bear population, the predator population, and so forth. And so there's a lot of value in shooting mature males for population control. Then another thing we want to avoid is shooting sows that have cubs. Shooting sows altogether, sows are legal, but most hunters will try to shoot a mature male if they can. Now, a lot of times, if you just happen to see a bear, it could be a sow and you aren't seeing her cubs. Maybe they went up a tree, or maybe they're in the bushes or whatever. If you're at a bait site, that gives you time to watch the bear and make sure there aren't any cubs with it, number one. It also gives you time to analyze the size of the bear, the sex of the bear, and it gives you a chance to watch and get a really good quality shot, because bears normally, when they come to a bait during the daylight, and baits are typically in thick cover, otherwise the bears aren't comfortable coming during the daylight, but they'll come in, and at first they're really nervous, and then they kind of settle down, and if you're patient, you'll get a good broadside shot and get that 10-second kill with your arrow zipping through both lungs like everybody wants. And same with gun hunters. So that's another significant advantage of using the bear bait to attract the animals and get a chance to really look over the bears. Another myth that I run into all the time is that people say, you don't eat the bears. Why shoot a bear that you won't eat? And my answer to that is, where did everybody get this idea that we don't eat the bears? Bear meat is excellent, and particularly baited bears, because if you think about it, you're spending 2 to 3 weeks, maybe more, feeding these bears grain and sugars and carbohydrates and all the things that their bodies need to get them through the winter to build fat reserves. You're creating a great, they grain finish the best beef. It could be grain finished. The best bears, I say, are sugar finished. So pastries and grains and things like that, it just makes for fantastic eating. Certainly there's a lot of people out there that have bad experiences with bear meat. The main one is because the bears aren't taken care of well. You have to realize that most bear hunting takes place, in May, June, August, and September. Those are warm months. And a lot of people come from deer hunting to bear hunting, and they're used to, shooting a deer in November, and they hang it up and they let it hang for a couple days and then they skin it. if you do that with a bear when it's 80 degrees, of course you're going to have bad bear meat, especially because they have such a thick layer of fat and heavy, thick, dense fur. So you've got to get the bears cooled off quickly, get the skin and fat off of them, and you'll have great bear meat. There are exceptions, of course. If you shoot a bear that's been feeding on a week-old moose carcass for a few days, that's not going to taste as good as a bear that's been eating corn and oats and pastries and so forth. So there's certainly exceptions. The main thing is you got to take good care of the bear. They're excellent to eat. All of this just adds up to, I guess, basically my explanation of why we bait bears. And it's not for everybody. If you don't feel comfortable hunting over bait, then just don't. But don't take cheap shots at the people who do, because they understand the value of it, and they understand the value ecologically, conservation-wise, and they also understand the value in adrenaline value, I guess is the way to put it, because it is, bear could kill you. He probably won't, but he could at any moment, and that just adds thrill to the hunt. So if you're sitting over a bait, and you won't hear a bear coming, typically. If you hear a bear coming, it's because he intended to be heard. But most of the time, you're in thick cover, and poof, there's a bear in front of you, and your adrenaline glands dump, and it's a thrilling way to hunt. It's not unsportsmanlike at all. Certainly, shooting a bear over bait is absolutely no less sportsmanlike than shooting a deer that's standing in a hayfield. So keep this all in mind, and I didn't do this for the people who are just haters and are against all hunting and think that animals have the same value as humans. And I get this all the time, and I'll just add this to the end here. People say that animals should have the right not to be killed by humans. Well, my question to them is, what are you going to do about that mouse under your sink? Or when was the last time you swatted a mosquito? So you're really not saying that animals should not be killed by humans. What you're saying is that the animals that you choose, you don't want killed, then they are the ones that should not be killed by humans. Well, that's not our choice to make. Our responsibility is to the whole environment as a whole. We're stewards of this earth. That means trimming down populations, using it responsibly, using deer and bear meat, which is fantastic, organic, free of all that other stuff that everybody's so excited about nowadays. It's good meat that you can go out and you can harvest yourself. You know where it came from. When you go to the grocery store, you don't know where that meat came from. Anyway, that's all I got, and thanks for watching this. It's kind of a rant, I'm sorry, but once again, thanks for being a part of this channel. And if you do understand this, then when you watch one of these bear hunting videos, just give it a like and maybe give a calm answer to some of the negative comments, and we'll all be better off. Thanks a lot.